Hi, welcome to the second episode of Alte Herren. My name is Rob Ronacres, and my colleague Hans Jodling will be joining us in just a second to introduce our guest. I just want to say now we're recording this a couple of days after the terrible events in Paris, and just wanted to say that all of our thoughts are with our friends there and in France. But now on to our episode, and over to you, Hans.
Thank you. Well, today we have a very famous, I would say, instructor and researcher with us, namely Ilkka Hartikainen from Finland. So, welcome, Ilkka. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Happy to be by you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're going to start this right away. Can you just tell us a little bit how you started in fencing and HEMA? What kind of drew you into that?
I think originally those movies, just seeing movies and sword fighting in films, and that got me interested. But this was, I think, back in the late 90s or the early 2000s, that I got this idea that, yeah, I want to learn how to use the sword. But back then there was really nothing available, so I started just surfing on the internet, and I came across John Clemence's work, and also, finally, when it was available, Christian Tolber's book on German longsword. And I got these, and also some wooden wasters and things from Purple Heart Armories. It's actually quite a long story, but basically I started with a small group of friends and my brother. We started training just by ourselves using this equipment and whatever sources we could find. And from there, I eventually got to know that Guy Windsor was in Finland, and he was actually doing regular training and classes. So I got involved in that, but that's also a long story because in the beginning I visited his school, and Purple Heart Armories actually played a part in making this happen. So they are, for a big part, they are to thank for my HEMA career. But it wasn't until maybe 9 months later that I actually started training with him, and this was after Bob Charon was there to do a workshop on Fior de Libris, sword work and wrestling. And after that, I kind of got drawn into the training at Guy's place, and I stuck with that. And I guess the rest is history.
So you start off with longsword, then you start off with obviously with some of the classic names in HEMA, and then you discover the Bolognese treatises, and you start on that. How did that occur?
I think originally it was after some Italians. Now I forget the names of these people because this was very long time ago. But they were doing a demonstration in a convention in Finland of swordsmanship. I think this was like a tourism convention or something like this. So they also visited Guy's cell, and they did a workshop on Achille Marozzo's material, basically starting off with his progression of guards. So this was probably my first exposure to the Bolognese tradition, but obviously I didn't start it back then. I didn't start studying it. Everything was a bit obscure back then. And then the next one was when I was with Guy traveling in Racine, in the same place where the WMAW is now held, the Coven Center, where they had this like instructor retreat. And there, I think it was Gary Shellac who made us do this exercise, that we had a paper which included some maybe it was a translation, or maybe it was the original Italian of some pages of Marozzo, I think. But back then I didn't understand anything about it. All the guards, some names were familiar, but their meaning was completely obscure to me. And I think the exercise was that we needed to interpret that and see what actually is going on in the techniques. But back then this was too difficult for me. I couldn't do it. But somehow it stuck in my head that, yeah, one day I want to understand all this. And after training for a couple of years with Guy, it started to become obvious that I need to start doing some research of my own, because this was part of Guy's training program, that all the senior students need to become researchers and teachers on their own right. So Bolognese was the obvious choice for me, and this is how I got started. And
why? What was it about? I mean, you've basically given us a load of facts, but why the Bolognese form? Why is it that it really appealed to you? Out of anything, why not Maya?
Well, Meyer would be my second choice after the Bolognese because I think it's closest to the Bolognese. But there's something to the movement dynamic that I really like. From the beginning, I thought and felt that I was a better fencer with the single-handed sword than I was with the longsword. And the other thing is the amount of material available really appealed to me because there was not a lot of room for guessing. So the challenge was actually reading and translating the sources, not so much having a bunch of pictures and trying to figure out what is going on. Rather, we knew what was going on after we got the translation of the text and were able to actually decipher it. And this is a process that is still going on because, I mean, I take Marozzo and I read it today. There are still a lot of things that I haven't understood before and a lot of work to be done. But it's not so much having everything already laid in front of me and then just looking at the same pictures again and again, but rather there's a wide array of material and techniques that we can study. There's a lifetime of study from the sources.
And you taught yourself Italian to do this?
Yes. Originally, just by reading the treatises and kind of learned this treatise Italian so that I could read the texts, but I'm now expanding it to actually being able to speak Italian and collaborate with my Italian colleagues. So right now I'm actually taking formal lessons on the Italian language as well.
Brilliant.
Okay. So you went from being in an established club, Guy Windsors, and then to start your own club, but was it mainly because you wanted to focus on Bolognese tradition, or I mean, we all know stories in HEMA community. There's a lot of politics in this. Was this something else going on? Why you wanted to have your own club? You have to focus on it, or was it just to do the Bolognese stuff the way you wanted it?
Yeah, part of it was that I just wanted to do the Bolognese the way I see it and wanted to do my own thing. But at the same time, I did not want to start anything just by myself because I didn't feel I was ready for that. This is the reason why a couple of other friends, basically my brother Hannu and Matias Parmala, we started a club together and expanded from the Bolognese to also German longsword pretty soon after we started. So it was kind of a starting point for other people as well to start doing something more, and also geographical expansion because we were basically at the time living in a more western part of the capital region, and the travel times were quite long, going all the way to Guy's place to train all the time. But of course, there was also the other side that I had been training with Guy for over 7 years quite actively at the time, and when you do something for a long time, you just need to take a break. You need to do something else, and I didn't want to stop doing HEMA. I didn't want to stop practicing with the sword. So I kind of saw a way out and a way into something else, like the next step in my training. And originally there was the idea that it would have happened more in collaboration with Guy, but that simply didn't work out at the time. So the decision was to completely start something that is separate from what he is doing.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, I mean, you still have quite active relationship with Guy, don't you? You still collaborate with him on some things or maintain contact.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I was just having a pint with him last week, I think. I think in the future there will be some collaboration with him. Of course, it'll be something that I can do with the Bolognese, and maybe depending on what projects he wants to be working on in the future. And this is very early to say at the time, and I don't do the decisions. But I think in the future I want to have an active role not only in our current club, the HMS, but also in other clubs in Helsinki, including Guy's club. And I want to see myself as a person who can facilitate and enable the practice of Bolognese swordsmanship in every club. So for me personally, this is my project, and it's not tied into any single club or organization. So yes, we are basically in good terms. No problems there.
Okay, for people who doesn't really know what the Bolognese tradition is, could you just quickly go through the manuals that you see is in the Bolognese tradition, and just name the manuals, name the weapons that. Can you go through that kind of quickly, just so people get an idea of what it is?
Yeah, certainly. So the Bolognese tradition is it comes from the Renaissance Italy, from the town of Bologna, obviously, and the manuals we have, they all come from the 16th century, and there's a little bit of debate on which manuals you can include in the actual proper Bolognese tradition. But for me, there are four main sources that I use. The first one is Antonio Manciolino, who wrote his book originally in the 1520s. And the copy we have now is from 1531. It's probably the second updated edition. Then there is Achille Marozzo, who is the most famous of these masters, and his book was reprinted many times. He originally wrote in 1536, or published in 1536. And then we have also Giovanni della Gocchie, who was the last of the Bolognese authors to write in 1572. And then we have my personal favorite text, the Anonimo Bolognese. It only survives as 2 manuscripts, so it was never published back in the 16th century. And this is my favorite because it includes more techniques on the single sword without any sidearms than any of the other sources. And this is probably from the early 16th century, but we cannot date it accurately, nor do we know who actually wrote it. There is some suspicion that it might be the master of Achille Marozzo and maybe also Antonio Manciolino who wrote it, Guido Antonio da Luca, but we cannot know that for sure because the manuscript is anonymous. It was not signed by the author.
I have a question for you on that. You make quite a strong statement that Della Gocchie is the last of the Bolognese authors, and yet we have additional authors who are called the Bolognese. You know, I've worked on Caval Cavo, who is quite obviously very similar, very derived from the Bolognese, and he's called up Bologna. Why do you make such a hard differentiation there? Why do you stop them there?
Probably because I'm just not familiar enough with the other sources. Once I study them in greater depth, I might change my opinion on this. So when I say it in a hard way, it's probably more about how I view it at the time, and I haven't made a complete study of all the sources from the area and kind of evaluated whether they could be included in the tradition and how maybe the tradition changed from the early 16th century towards the late 16th century and into the 17th century. What are the connections? Because I mean, if you look at Capoferro, for example, he uses some of the same terminology as the Bolognese masters, and also he actually copies some of the same texts, just changing them a little bit that we have in Della Gocchie. So obviously there are connections to this kind of tradition that goes on. But to me, it's hard to count anything except these 4 treatises as the main Bolognese corpus.
I mean, I do wonder whether it's people, some of the Victorian authors who've kind of defined the Bolognese tradition for us, rather than us looking at it. I'm wondering on something else. Of course, we talk about side sword, and we make that there's for me quite an unfortunate differentiation between side sword and rapier, when of course it's that our authors spanning the period are talking just about sword. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do actually. I think the biggest difference is the way the hilt is constructed. Because if you have a complex hilt, many of the techniques that you find, for example, in the Anonimo Bolognese make no sense, because he's very keen on cutting the hand. So the initial action is often just a cut to the hand, or sometimes to the arm, but quite often the hand precisely. And also, after you've executed the technique, you often recover out of measure by hitting the hand. And the complex hilt is a very good protection against these cuts. So these techniques would not make much sense with the rapier. So to me, I don't have one type of sword that I look at as a typical Bolognese sword. But when I hold a sword, I immediately get the feeling whether I want to use it more in the 17th century rapier style or in the earlier, more cut-oriented style. I kind of feel this distinction always when I hold a sword. And I think if we're using rapiers or more point trust-oriented weapons to study the Bolognese, we get some things pretty badly wrong. Mainly that we forget about the hand cuts, and we are too focused on making counter thrusts, because it has the same thing. When you thrust forwards, you expose your hand to cuts, but with the complex hilt, it's not so much of a problem. And the other thing is that the guard positions themselves become more extended, because you don't have to worry about the hand being cut. So these kind of changes start to lure in. So I'm a very strong proponent of the use of very simple hilt swords for the practice and study of the Bolognese. Maybe you can have a more complex hilt as a practical sword if you want to be protected, but for the study, I suggest only using a cross guard and arms or rings to protect the index finger and nothing else, not even a knuckle bow.
But do you feel that actually works when you're talking about Daggerkey, who's in the 1570s, and you deal with what we call rapier? I prefer to call sword treatises of, say, Cavalcava of 1595, Salviolo, of course, and some of these, you know, these later 16th century ones. Isn't sort of Daggerkey more pertaining to them than you can say to something in the 1530s? There's a longer time span.
Yeah, I think there is a change. And it has been suggested that Daggerkey is a style for a different kind of sword. But we have to remember that Daggerkey is still very cut-oriented. He has a lot of cuts in his system. And maybe the biggest difference is in the footwork and the stance, because he says that you always should be with your right foot forward, and if you're left forward, the only thing you do is make a pass so that you're again right foot forward. And this is also something that starts to look like more of a rapier style footwork, whereas something like the Anonimo is very circular, and there are lots and lots of plays where you take use of passing steps and keeping the left foot forward. Likewise, we have Marozzo, who has the segno, the footwork segno, which is a clear indication of more circular footwork that we don't see maybe that much in the later treatises. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that there is a definite change in the type of sword from the earlier Bolognese sources to Daggerkey. I cannot say that.
What about talking? One thing that always strikes me when I'm practicing Bolognese is the similarity in much the footwork with some of the early Spanish texts. Of course, Carranza, references some of the Bolognese. Is this something that you've looked at?
Only very briefly. I haven't really looked at any of the Spanish stuff, so I wouldn't care to comment about that really. But I have a feeling, and this is basically just a feeling, that Marozzo being earlier has more of this circular kind of stepping and movement. And then when we enter the 17th century, everything starts to be more about this direct line. Now, whether it is just a kind of artifact from more salle practicing in the salle where people would need to be in line or something like this, I don't know. But I do have a feeling that this circular footwork comes from an earlier kind of base, and the same base was used for the Spanish. But I haven't really made any definite study about this, so I can't say. This is only a feeling.
Okay. So, how many times a week do you train, and do you combine your fencing training with something else, like fitness exercises, weightlifting, or something?
Basically, well, the first thing I need to do at the moment is teaching, and it's my main thing. So I teach 3 to 4 classes a week. Okay. And sometimes I get my own training just during these classes, but usually I need to do some extra training by myself, so maybe preferably twice, but at least once a week I do sessions with the sword on my own, practicing whatever it is that I need to practice. And I combine the sword training with fitness training. Basically, I do, at the moment, gym training, weight training, and also bodyweight exercises. A lot of work for the forearms and wrists and other problem areas that there might be for the use of the sword. I have a personal trainer who takes care of my physical training, so I have a gym routine which is twice a week, preferably. and beyond this, I tried to do some cardio. I did running, but then I had a stress injury in my Achilles tendon, which basically stopped me from running. So I've been trying to compensate that with cycling and other things like this. But yeah, it's I do other training as well. So it's a very kind of crowded schedule for the week.
Okay. Rob, do you have something?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think, and just thinking about the massive amount of work you're putting into it.
Yeah.
Do you find that you have problems teaching so much? Does that become a stress? Smiling, because I think we all know that sometimes thinking, oh God, I've got to do a class, but I want to go. I need to get some practice done. I'm not practicing that.
Yeah, it can be a problem. Yeah, sometimes I'm too tired, and if I haven't recovered properly, it starts to have an effect on the quality of classes. Yeah, it does happen. In my case, it probably usually shows as me being angry at the students, being kind of a mad person and not so nice. But,
you wouldn't be the first student. Don't worry, we're all like that.
Yeah, I'm in good company, I guess. Yeah, it can be a problem with the teaching, the amount. But I think the first thing that starts to suffer, and I kind of feel bad about it, is the research side. So because I have a basic set of exercises and techniques that I can always teach to people, and there's always stuff to practice on, just on those. But at the same time, there's still so much work to be done in just studying the Bolognese tradition and getting more material out. It's just like during the last month, we have basically started working on the closer range, the gioco stretto action, so the strette di mezza spada, which is a type of fencing where the swords are already crossed, and you do techniques from that position instead of fighting from a wider range. And the reason why we haven't done this much at class during the last maybe 2 years is because I simply haven't had the time to do the proper research and create teaching material from this section of Bolognese swordsmanship that I could actually teach to people in an effective way. But now I've tried to squeeze that in, and we have started doing that. But there's a lot of work like this to be done. And then when I do this kind of research work, again, there is no time for blog posts and making videos that I would really want to do and come up with material that other people can use. But the 24 hours in a day are already quite well spent, so something always starts to leak at some point. And of course, I don't do this professionally. I have a day job at the moment, so that doesn't really help with that.
One question: are you going to teach? Do you have any events that you will go to next year that you know of, so people can kind of plan to go and train for you?
Yes, I will be in Mexico in January, and then in April I will be in Bruges, and probably some other events as well. But I'm not really sure if anything else is kind of fixed at the moment. But those two at least are. And probably there's going to be other stuff as well. And I should have a list of events on my website, imarozo.com, listing which events I will be teaching, but it's not actually up to date right now, but I will update it soon after this interview, since people might be interested in checking it out.
Okay. Cool. So tell me, I mean, we've talked, we've had a number of names so far, but have you got any anyone out there in the HEMA community who kind of inspire you, or you want to work with, for example, or you just like their stuff?
Oh, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. It's difficult for me to pick just certain names that inspire me, because many people inspire me in different ways. So some people inspire me as simply as fighters, and people like Axel Peterson and T. School, for example. I'm always inspired to see them fight and to spar with them and train with them, because they have insights they can give me. And there's a lot of other people like this as well. But then there are also people who some of them are good fighters, but some of them are also good researchers and have a good idea of what the Bolognese swordsmanship is like. And many people in Italy that I have come to know during the last couple of years that I've traveled to Italy and tried to get into the Italian community of Bolognese fencers, they are truly inspiring. People like Roberto Gotti from Guardia di Croce, many people from the Sala d'Armi Achille Marozzo, and also the people from Sala delle Armi in Turin. There are a lot of great guys and girls there who are training, and what is most inspiring to me is probably the fact that I can go see these people and we just pick up swords and we start training in whatever way we want. Maybe we spar, maybe we do techniques, maybe we practice some of the Bolognese forms, and a lot of it just clicks together, so it feels like even if we are doing it in our own way, it's still compatible. So I think we are really approaching the heart of the style and really coming up with this kind of common understanding of what the Bolognese swordsmanship should be like. And this is like it basically gives me shivers. It's so cool, the feeling that I get from this.
Okay. And to promote Bolognese fencing, you have started a tournament called the Helsinki Bolognese Open, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Will this be the third year, or is it second year? No.
This is now the third year, I think. Yeah.
Third year. Okay. Can you tell us about that? Why did you want to start that kind of tournament? What did you do that?
We basically just wanted to do that since we started the longsword tournament as well, the Helsinki Longsword Open, which is part of the Nordic Historical Fencing League. So it kind of makes sense that the other side of our club, which is the Bolognese side, also has a tournament. Especially because tournament fighting was actually a part of the Bolognese tradition back in the 16th century as well. We know that for sure. So it makes sense to have a competition, and it's a good kind of ground to test your skills and also to invite people from other clubs to come into Helsinki and fight with us. And it's not just us fighting each other all the time, and also getting people from maybe some other martial arts, because the Bolognese is not yet so widely practiced. So we get saber fighters and we get all kinds of single-handed sword fighters, rapier fighters join in, so we can test how well our skills and training program works against these people. So it's useful.
Which weapons will be covered this year? It's a single sword tournament, and there will also be a sword and dagger?
Yes.
Okay.
There's going to be like a bigger single sword competition, and then a single elimination sword and dagger competition.
Okay.
Are you having Rotella again this year?
Sorry?
Are you having Rotella again this year?
No, not this year. Not this year. We only have like one special weapon. Some people wanted to have the Rotella again, but we decided that this year, because we're kind of doing the whole competition a little bit smaller, it doesn't make sense to have 2 extra weapons in the competition.
Okay, can you just give me the dates of when they are again, just for anyone listening in?
It's next weekend, on the 21st.
Right.
21st.
Well, hurry up and get there, because I mean, I did the last 2 years and had immense fun, huge amount of fun, including 3 hours in a Finnish hospital.
Always fun. Always fun experience.
Yeah, that was. Watch out for the Finnish medical care, because I had 2 paramedics and 2 doctors tell me my thumb was broken, and sat in a Finnish hospital for a very overtired Finnish doctor saying, "No, there's nothing wrong with your hand. Go away."
The Finnish medics.
I must say, Hans and I have done the Nordic League competitions as well as judges, and there's a very special bar that you take us to, Ilkka.
One more time, I didn't hear that.
There's a very special bar that the Finns take us to.
It's awesome.
Would you care to just explain it to us?
It's my local joint, basically. There's a lot of singing that happens in that bar. It's a karaoke bar.
Yeah, it's the karaoke bar, really.
It's a good bar.
Wow.
It was quite a devastating experience for a lot of us.
Yeah, it usually ends up that way.
Okay. Sorry, carry on.
Now, since we're talking about the tournaments, could you also say something? Do you feel that there's a conflict in, the tournament versus the art, as some people are saying sometimes on the social media in HEMA community? Do you feel that there is a conflict?
Not really a conflict, but these two these two things are a little bit different. So the only worry that I have is that the competition kind of overwhelms the research and study of these arts. If this might happen, but that's the only thing really. I think we see in the competitions very good fencing and very good athleticism, and also sometimes very good techniques and a good kind of fencing. But I think the heart of the study of HEMA should be in the study of the treatises and learning the techniques, and not judging the techniques and the interpretations just according to whether they work in the tournaments. And also we need to respect people who don't do tournaments, or do tournaments but don't necessarily win them. Since if you do a lot of teaching and if you do a lot of research, reading the books and working with them, this is time away from your physical practice and your tournament preparation. So you cannot expect people to excel in all areas.
Okay. Cool.
I think that's it's an interesting point. I mean, obviously Hans and I had a discussion about this in our last episode. For me, I'm concerned that we see things as two streams, whereas I think from my side I see HEMA as very multifaceted, and we can build on as many different things as we want. Why do you think we're actually saying there are two streams though? Why not just that there is a that there are just many different parts to HEMA, and some people are going to be good at some things and some at others, but it's all important. Why do you feel we're trying to find two streams as a community, or are we?
Well, I think we shouldn't really. As I said that because it feels like it is very polarized at the moment. So it's like there are talks of people being pro-tournament or anti-tournament, but I agree with you. It shouldn't be so polarized because there are many things that you can do with HEMA. It can be a competitive art. You can do competitions and fight. You can do it as more of like self-defense practice. For example, some of the wrestling and some of the dagger plays, they're applicable to maybe modern self-defense situations. You can just study it in an academic way, so you don't really care whether you can actually do the fighting or not. Or you can try to reconstruct not only the techniques, but also the context. So you're studying what was the duel like, and what kind of preparation would be necessary for the duel. Because, for example, with the Bolognese, we have to remember that probably 80 to 90% of the material is written for the context of the duel. And now, how many of us really understand anything about the 16th century Italian dueling culture? Some people know something, but most people have no clue about it and how this would have affected the martial arts of that time.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, I think we've got a couple more questions to go. I think one of the pressing things that Hans and I have discussed when wanting to interview you is about your cats. Now, Hans, I don't know if you want to leap in there, but there's a certain thing about your cats that there are various things that disturb us about your affiliation with your cats. Hans, do you want to shoot first?
Yeah. Why do you shave your cats, Ilkka?
Okay, I don't. The cats do it themselves.
Oh, okay. Well.
You give your cats razors?
Yeah, they have very sharp nails.
Okay, because I mean, it's interesting. You have very much your Marozzo side of it, and then on your site, you just post up loads of pictures of your cats, and not of your girlfriend.
Oh, there are a couple. There are a couple.
Well, you know, I mean, your girlfriend, very beautiful, with immensely, quiffed hair and so on. Is this a jealousy thing about her hair? And is this why you have shaven cats?
Well, no. I think it's more about the cats not complaining if I post random pictures of them.
So far.
Okay, and I think, Hans, you've got a very important question about...
I do, actually, I do. I mean, we all know you as a very humble and very nice guy, Ilkka, but if you could slap anyone in the HEMA community, who would it be? You know, if you could just whack someone in the HEMA community.
And this is a difficult one because, I mean, to be honest with you guys, there are a lot of people in the HEMA community that I really want to slap around all the time. But if you force me to pick just one, I think I'd have to go with Scott Hellroth.
Ah, okay. That's a good choice, actually. It's a very good choice.
Okay. Well, this is something I think we'll be asking future interviewees as well, because this is something that has a lot of importance as to who we want to slap in HEMA.
A little weight into it.
Okay. All right, guys. I think that just about wraps it up for us. Okay. Right. So, Ilkka Hartikainen, good luck with the Polonaise tournament next week, and we'll hopefully catch up with you again sometime.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.